Welcome to our latest Hoopcast. Pat Dooley and Kevin Brockway, the Gainesville Sun, and talk a little bit about what Florida's got coming up Tuesday night against Tennessee. But first, kind of look back at the game against Arkansas, which I have to be honest with you, Kevin, I turned off at halftime. It's pretty obvious who was going to win that game.
It was one of those days when you miss your first 13 three-point attempts, all 10 in the first half, and really a lot of inside shots around the basket too. And I think it let Florida get to them a little bit mentally, and certainly on the defensive end of the floor, you allow Arkansas to shoot 57%, from the first half. And I think that's really what Billy was more concerned about. Yesterday all day in practice, they just pretty much worked on defense on Sunday. Had two practices, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, so they're trying to get back to the basics defensively to fix their problems.
Yeah, I mean, that was, they didn't shoot well, and they took it back to the defensive end. I mean, Sonny Weems likes to shoot from the corner. They never covered him there. They liked to run that alley-oop with Stephen Hill. They never tried to stop it. Maurice Spates was instead trying to take charges and stuff. It was just I had a feeling they were going to have a game like that in the SEC play because they're so young. I didn't know where it was going to be, but it's if you're a Gator fan, you hope they got it out of their system.
I think mainly Arkansas's matchups, crazy. Weems is such a difficult matchup because he's a wing guy. He's about 6'8", 6'9". He can shoot from outside. He can drive to the basket. You're so concerned about him, and you have another big physical team that kind of presents Florida problems. We've been seeing a trend with that now. Florida State, Ohio State, and now Arkansas. Yeah. 3 of their 4 losses against teams that are bigger and more athletic. And certainly Tennessee coming up is athletic, but they're not that big, and maybe that gives Florida a little bit of a better chance, even though you're talking about a top 10 team in the country in Tennessee.
Yeah, it's not like you said, it's a very athletic team, and they're going to try to play this very similar game to what Florida plays. They're going to try to run. They're going to try to get the game going at a fast pace, which is good for Florida. But they've got so many guys they can bring into the game off the bench. That's going to be really difficult for the Gators to keep up with them. J.P.
Prince is a guy in particular that's been very impressive when you watch him in SEC play. He'd be starting a lot of the other teams in the league, and then you've got Tyler Smith, who's a similar kind of wing player.
Right.
And they play the 3 guards like Florida does with Jawan Smith. Chris Lofton is heating up now from three-point range, where he was kind of struggling early in the season. Ramar Smith, a year older as a point guard, and Wayne Chisholm has been playing well inside. So they really have a lot of answers in a lot of different spots. It's certainly going to be a pretty big challenge, for Florida. And I think if they come in there and they play well, even if they lose, they regain some confidence. I think what they're trying to avoid is going in there and getting embarrassed.
Get destroyed again, for the second time in, what would that be, 4 days? That would not be a good way to go through a stretch that we talked about. I thought if Florida could go 1-1 in this stretch, it would be good, but I really thought the one they had a chance to win was Arkansas. To get humiliated like that, now going to Tennessee against a team number 1 in the nation in RPI. They've been there for a while because of their tough non-conference schedule. I don't see Florida winning this game, but they've surprised me in the already this season on SEC road games.
Well, I think the one area where Florida might have a chance is on the backboards. Tennessee is a little bit vulnerable inside because they play smaller, and I think it's a game where Spates, if they're going to have a chance, Spates is going to have to show up first and foremost. He didn't have another very good game against Arkansas. He had some turnovers early and couldn't create a factor inside, so they're going to need an inside presence. If they can do that, and then somehow deal with Tennessee's press, they might have a chance, and make a bunch of shots too. Maybe all those missed 3-pointers as well. They could come back and maybe hit a few at Thompson Bowling Arena that they didn't get at Bud Walton Arena, certainly.
Well, I said that, this was a team that if they shot well could beat anybody on the schedule, and if they didn't shoot well could lose to anybody on the schedule. And I think we're pretty much seeing that. Maybe the one exception might have been the Kentucky game where even though they shot a good percentage, they found different ways to score, but for the most part, they're hitting their threes. They're pretty good. If they're not, they're pretty bad.
Yeah, and I think, too, that, getting back maybe a little bit to defense, Billy kind of pointed out Dan Werner is a guy that, maybe kind of let it affect him. We had that early foul and stuff, and they're going to need him to kind of get back to that role, being a glue guy. But I thought he was chucking, more than a few threes in that Arkansas game and the last couple, and I think he needs to get back to mixing it up a little bit down inside as well.
And they were short on a lot of threes, which just tells you a team that didn't have a lot of energy for some reason. Again, with a week off, you would think they would have plenty of energy, but certainly with this game coming up against Tennessee, the one thing they've got to understand, I still don't think they get, is when you're on the road, you're going to get bad calls. I mean, the charge on Nick Late this early in the game was one of the worst calls I've ever seen, but It happens on the road. We saw some things happen to Vanderbilt they couldn't believe when they were in Gainesville. So you've got to deal with that.
Yeah, and Adam Allen talked about, today when we were talking, in the Monday news conference, he was talking about, it affecting them mentally when they miss shots and not bearing down on defense. And I think that kind of carried over. And, you're not going to beat many teams when you allow them to shoot 57% in the first half and let them, have high percentage shots the whole game. And you're 0 for 10. I mean, it's just a terrible combination all the way around. So just trying to get them to understand that, hey, look, if you're not shooting well, you still have to kind of bring the energy on defense, particularly early in the game, to give yourself a chance. And they didn't do that from the get-go. Yeah,
we'll see how they do Tuesday night. And, of course, if they get out of this with another loss, it's 5-3. And, they're back on that NCAA bubble. And Billy, in a way, was right, although it's our job to be concerned with it. But when he talked about you're in, you're out, your last 4 in, last 4 out, none of that matters. And he's right. But for us, we do have to pay attention to that. And right now, I think Florida's barely in. And they need to get a win tonight would really cement that situation, or Tuesday night would really cement that situation. But even if they lose, they've got to kind of get back on the right track in terms of the NCAA tournament.
That would certainly help because it would be that signature win. And, they beat Vanderbilt, which was a ranked team, but now Vanderbilt looks like they're going to fall out of the rankings. But I think the good thing when you look at the second half of the season is, they'll have 5 of their last 8 at home. They're going to have a bye week on February 23rd. So there's going to be a chance for a little bit of growth and a little less travel. And everyone knows how hard it is just to win SEC games on the road, let alone against a quality team like a Tennessee and an Arkansas. So maybe this is a part of their schedule, a rough patch. And the question is, how do you respond from it? You know what I mean? If you get blown out, if you come back with the right focus and not let it affect your confidence, then, maybe you turn around and you make a strong run at the end of the season and get into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, still have to go to Vanderbilt, still have to go to Lexington as well. But the schedule is a little bit better in the second half. So we'll see what happens. We'll be back to preview the Georgia game, which, of course, is Saturday on our next Hoopcast. Until then, Kevin Brockway, Pat Dooley saying so long from the Sunshine State.